Hey, what's going on? My name's Vit, and in this video we're going to be talking about the level 100 Dragoon. So, I finally got a chance to start playing Dragoon in a bunch of content. I've been farming out the extreme trials. I progged both of them on Dragoon. This is pretty much my main job. It has been throughout pretty much all of Endwalker. I love Dragoon. Long story short, it still feels great. I'm still really liking it with the new additions. But we're going to get into all the changes, the updates, and my first impressions of this job at level cap now in Dawntrail. So let's just jump right into it. The first thing you'll notice on my hotbar is that I still got Dragon Sight here, but it's grayed out. And I miss Dragon Sight. I wish we still had this. I feel like it was an ability that gave Dragoon a lot of, identity. It was maybe a little clunky, so I see why they got rid of it, but I still miss it. I think it was cool. They basically moved the buff from Dragon Sight and put it on your Skogul, so when you go into your Life of the Dragon, you now get the 15% damage boost. It used to be 10% for you and 5% for a party member. Now it's just 15% for you, so Dragoon's doing a bit better personal damage than it used to, which is nice. It no longer buffs a party member. You've still got Litany, which is your party buff, but yeah, I don't know. It's a little more leaning into personal damage where, Lance Charge does 10%, your Skogul does 15%, and you have some more damaging abilities with some of the new stuff that we got. So, I don't know. I wish we still had Dragon Sight. I think it was really fun. I wish we still had the tether that Dragon Sight used to have. That's been long gone though, so oh well. Wishful thinking, but yeah, I don't know. I don't mind the buffs being more personal and more easily accessible. You don't have to target your party member anymore like you used to. Just press your Skogul, you get the buff. It's a little more streamlined, it's a little more simplified. You are already pressing your Skogul basically in the same place anyway, so it basically just got rid of the need to press an extra button while still getting a similar effect. So it is what it is. It's not I can take it or leave it. I think it was kind of fun pressing Dragon Sight, but not the end of the world to see it gone. Outside of that, the next thing that I think I'm going to talk about is our level 100 skill, Starcross. I'm not a massive fan of this button. Don't get me wrong, it's good. It works as intended. It's just big damage. It's a follow-up to Stardiver. But it just doesn't feel like it has as much impact as Stardiver. I was kind of hoping it would be very similar to Stardiver, but it's just damage on the enemy's position, and it doesn't have the most incredible sound effect. It just kind of feels like you're pressing a button and damage goes out, which, don't get me wrong, is welcome, but I don't know. In place of this, we used to have Spine Shatter Dive, and in my opinion, the two new OGCD abilities, Starcross and Rise of the Dragon, are kind of replacements for those two charges of Spine Shatter Dive. And Spine Shatter used to be a jump that would gap close you to the location, and it also had a little bit of animation lock that would lock you in place. So we no longer have that with Starcross and Rise of the Dragon. You can basically just weave these. You can double weave them wherever you want. There's no animation lock, there's no jump, it's just damage that goes out, which is fine. It gives you more freedom of movement during your bursts, but at the same time, they just feel maybe a little less impactful, in my opinion. They both look really cool. I wish Starcross had a maybe slightly punchier sound effect tied to it. And it's weird because it's centered on the enemy's location. So if you're fighting a wall boss or something, you'll press Starcross and it kind of goes off on the center of their hitbox. And a lot of the time those big wall bosses, like Trial number 1, for example, they're off the arena. So your entire Starcross animation is off the arena. And it's sometimes you don't even see it go off. It just feels like nothing's happening when you press this button sometimes. And that's not great for a level 100 ability, in my opinion. So I don't know. I have some complaints about this one. It's functional. It works. It feels fine. I have no complaints other than just how it feels to press. Like, I just wish it felt more impactful, but at the end of the day, it gets the damage out, and, you know, it's okay. It looks cool in like a dungeon pull when you're hitting a bunch of enemies with it. It's all like centered around the pack of mobs. That's awesome. That looks good, but my main complaint is when you're fighting a wall boss and like you don't even see it go off because it's like way off screen somewhere, and, you know, whatever. It's functional. It works. Alternatively, we have Rise of the Dragon, which is the follow-up to Dragonfire. You'll also see that I have these split up on different buttons. That's just to fill up my hotbar. I had a bunch of empty spots. I have to figure out what I'm doing with my hotbar. It feels a little clunky how it's set up right now. It was really good on old Dragoon, but our burst kind of works in a very slightly different order now. So I'm having to bounce around between all my different buttons a bit more than I used to, so I might have to reorder some things. But currently I have things split up onto 2 different buttons. I could have this on the same button as Dragonfire, same with Starcross and Stardiver, same with High Jump and Mirage Dive. So I could really pare down my hotbars a bit if I really wanted to. But yeah, back to Rise of the Dragon. It's okay. I think it does a better job than Starcross because, I don't know, the animation is slightly more interesting, has a cooler sound effect in my opinion, and it's not your big level 100 ability, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it having the same issues that Starcross has that I just went over. Maybe being slightly less impactful, you know, goes off screen on the wall boss, whatever. It basically works identically to Starcross, it just does a little less damage and has a different animation on it, but I don't know. I think the animation's slightly cooler. Yeah, I don't know. It has the same exact functionality as Starcross, so it's just another filler OGCD to fill out your burst. But they do look cool, don't get me wrong. I like them. I just wish both of those buttons were maybe slightly more impactful. Outside of that, we have some upgrades for Vorpal Thrust and Disembowel in the form of Lance Barrage and Spiral Blow. These buttons work identically to how they used to. Spiral Blow still gives you a 10% damage buff, so you keep this up at all times. Your basic combo still works identically. We already talked about Dragon Sight, the buff, but the other thing I forgot to mention is that Dragon Sight used to negate positionals for those 20 seconds. So during your 2-minute burst, you would not have to worry about positionals. With Dragon Sight now gone, removed, we are back to doing our positionals during burst, which is fine because we have slightly fewer positionals now. We used to have 5 positionals per 10 GCDs, so 50% of our buttons were positionals before in Endwalker. And now in Dawntrail, I believe it's down to 3 out of every 10, so only 30% of our buttons are positionals, our main GCDs in our combo at least, that is. So it's, you know, it's a give and take. We have less positionals, but we now have to do them during our 2-minute burst. But our 2-minute burst also now has a bit more freedom of movement with the removal of Spine Shatter, so it's kind of a toss-up, honestly. Like, I don't think positionals got any more difficult with the removal of Dragon Sight and the positional requirements tied to it, or the lack thereof. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a non-issue for me. Like, I'm okay with how positionals are on the new Dragoon. Like, they did get simplified, but at the same time, you have to do them during burst. So, give and take, it's okay. The 5th hit of our combo, Drake's Bane, has no longer has a positional requirement tied to it. So I'm still fighting that muscle memory for that 5th hit of the combo, whereas before it would either be Wheeling Thrust or Fanging Claw. You either have to hit a flank or a rear, depending which combo you're doing. Now that 5th hit just has no more positional, but I find myself still going for it. That'll come in time. I'll get used to it. I was still doing that when they made the Dragon Sight change that got rid of positionals. I was still going for those positionals during my burst. So I'll probably always go for that 5th hit positional, even though it no longer exists, but it is what it is. I can't miss it, at least, which is good. So the other thing that happened with Dragoon is that Litany is now a 20-second buff, which is cool. It lets you fit a few more things under it, whereas before, I believe Lance Charge was always a 20-second buff. Litany would just fall off, and you would miss the last few things under Litany, and that was fine. You just couldn't do anything about it. But now, at least in your opener, I do Lance Charge after Spiral Blow. So after your second GCD, Lance Charge. After your third GCD, you do Litany, Gear Skogul. You do Litany first because Gear Skogul does damage, obviously. So that gets all your buffs up, but the 20 seconds of Litany also lasts long enough until Wormwind comes up. So you can actually fit that Wormwind in your opener under Litany, and that's pretty cool. It's something you couldn't do before. It's like very last second. The timing on that's super tight. So you have to be pressing that Wormwind thrust on like as soon as it's available to get it under Litany, but you can do that now, so that's pretty cool. The other thing that changed with the burst timing is that Gear Skogul and the follow-up Nostrons, you can fit all 3 Nostrons under burst now, but you only have 20 seconds to do so. So your burst kind of feels more strict than it ever did before, which is kind of weird. You need to prioritize getting all 3 of those Nostrons into your 20-second burst, because once that 20 seconds runs out, you go out of Life of the Dragon, and Nostron's no longer active, it's no longer available, Stardiver's no longer available, Starcross is no longer available. So if you don't get any of those abilities inside that 20-second burst, you just lose them. Whereas before you could use them outside of burst, because I believe Life of the Dragon was 30 seconds before, and Nostrand had a longer cooldown on it, and one of those 3 Nostrons would always just fall outside of burst. But now you have to fit them all inside of burst. Nostrand now only has a 1-second cooldown, so you can use them back to back. Yeah, I don't know. It's easy enough to fit everything in burst. It's pretty tight though, so I just need to get used to the flow of the new burst. We'll show it in a sec. But yeah, I don't know. It's just different than it used to be. And it's, if you drift anything outside of burst, being those Nostrons or Stardiver or Starcross, you just lose them now. There's nothing about it. As soon as Life of the Dragon ends, the timer on your gauge here, as soon as that ends, you no longer can press Stardiver, you can no longer press Starcross, you can no longer press Nostrand. It is what it is. It's just a little more punishing than it used to be, because before you could still press those buttons, but they'd be outside of buffs, which was obviously not what you wanted to be doing, but you could still press the buttons. So now it's if you don't get all of it under buffs, you don't get it at all. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of rough. Dragoon seems a little more strict than it used to. The other thing you'll notice about the gauge is that it no longer has the eyes, which were generated from Mirage Dive. You used to need 2 Mirage Dives to generate 2 eyes to use Life of the Dragon. Now you just press Gear Skogul every 60 seconds and it automatically goes into Life of the Dragon. So you want to be pressing Gear Skogul on cooldown. You want to be pressing Jump on cooldown as well as Mirage Dive, just to have them not drift out of your burst window. But I don't know. I don't think the eye change, I don't think, removing eyes from Mirage Dive simplified the job at all, really. It's just less punishing in that sense, but it's more punishing in the sense with the life window that we just talked about. You'll always have your life window, but you better not screw up your life window, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. You still want to be using high jump exactly the same way you would previously in Endwalker. You want to be pressing that every 30 seconds on cooldown, under buffs every minute. And yeah, I don't know. The only difference is that we know Gear Skogul is now on a 60-second cooldown instead of 30-second, just because it's a buff now. So the only difference is that you're no longer pressing Gear Skogel on those 30-second timers. But I don't know, that's one less OGCD every minute, so it's not the end of the world to me. I don't really notice that lack of Gear Skogel at the 30-second mark. That's kind of whatever. The eye change is nice. I've yet to really run into a fight that I noticed that in yet. It's more convenient in dungeons for sure, where you don't have to like try to line up your Mirage dives so that you have your life window. Like, it is a nice change. It's a good quality of life change, in my opinion. And, you know, it doesn't change how you use high jump Mirage dive. It's just less punishing if you don't get that Mirage dive off, which is a-okay in my book. So, yeah, I don't know. Did I miss anything here? I don't think so. Did we talk about Winged Glide? This is our new 0 potency gap closer that we can use. It's okay. It doesn't feel perfect. It's a little sluggish. It's a little clunky. It could be a little snappier, I think. Kind of like Monk's Thunderclap. That would be really nice. You know, a lot of people have complained about this when it comes to some of the, like the Dark Knight and the Gunbreaker gap closers. I don't know. They're just they have slightly more delay than I would like. I don't know if that's something that will ever change, but they serve their purpose. It's nice to have a free gap closer when you need it, rather than relying on Spine Shatter Dive when you could only use it during your burst. So having free use of a gap closer, even if it may be slightly clunky, it's better than nothing, in my opinion. Like, you can still use Elusive to close the gap as well, but you probably won't use it for that anymore. You would mainly only use Elusive now to, like, reposition yourself, which is, you know, what it's designed to do. So having those two separate options now is a nice change, in my opinion. I just wish Winged Glide was a little snappier. So, I don't know. Like I talked about, our burst, removing Spine Shatter, which had an animation lock. Now our only animation locks are in the form of High Jump, Dragonfire, and Stardiver. We used to have two more in the form of... Or, did I say Spine Shatter or Stardiver? I don't know. Getting rid of mixing everything up now. Getting rid of our two Spine Shatter dives made positioning on Dragoon and going for those positionals slightly easier now, but I don't know. We need to go for more positionals during our burst, so it's a toss-up. The upgrades, Spiral Blow and Lance Charge, Lance Barrage. There's too many similar names here, man. They're getting all... I'm screwing everything up now. It all feels the same as it did before. Our combo feels the same with the exclusion of that final GCD on the 5th hit, or the final positional on the 5th hit. Our burst is slightly busier and more strict than it used to be. One thing we can do is jump into Stone Sky C, and I will walk us through our burst a little bit here and just show what the rotation looks like. Okay, here we are in Stone Sky C. We're in Everkeep, the trial for this, just to test to make sure you can beat the damage check in that fight. And through the power of video editing, you'll notice that we have our rotation on screen. So I'm just going to run through this and maybe talk a little over the rotation. One thing you'll notice right off the bat is they changed the potion recast time, I guess. So you're now able to double weave potions, which is really nice. So after my second GCD, I will do Lance Charge Potion, and then, you know, double weave both of those. So be on the lookout for that. A nice little update for our opener. And we also just get Stardiver and our full burst in the opener. So Dragoon starts out really strong now. Let's just jump right into it. No pun intended. Alright, so second GCD, Lance Charge, Potion, Litany, your Skogel. And like I was saying, the rotation definitely feels a bit more strict. You kind of want to prioritize getting those Nostrons out, but yeah, I don't know. There's not too much rhyme or reason to it. Here you'll see this Wormwind also falls under Litany. They both fell off at pretty much the exact same time, and now our burst is over, 20 seconds, and now we're just in maintenance mode. You want to be pressing high jump as soon as it comes off cooldown from here on out. The only other thing to really think about on Dragoon is Wormwind Thrust. You can pretty much use it. You basically never want to hold it unless you have less than 10 seconds remaining on your lance charge. And that's because those 10 seconds are how long it takes to generate another scale on your gauge. So if you were to try to hold your Wormwind for burst, you run the risk of overcapping your resource to generate your next Wormwind, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I don't know. The rotation feels very similar to how it used to. The burst feels good. Like, I like the burst. It's busy. It's as busy as ever, if not busier, and tighter timings on some things, maybe. Again, use that 30-second high jump on cooldown. Can use that Wormwind, because we still got 20 seconds remaining on burst coming up, so... I'm pretty sure it's either at the 3 or the... maybe it's the 5-minute burst. One of the odd-minute bursts you want to save the Wormwind for. But otherwise, you basically just press Wormwind as soon as it's available. Get Lance Charge up. Get Litany and Gears up. And then you can just start double weaving everything. I screwed up. I meant to use Life Surge on that Drakesbane, but I didn't do it. And I barely got that last Nostrand in under buffs. Just because I did some orders wrong there, and, you know, you make one little mistake, you try to weave in a feint or something, and you're missing things in the burst. It's pretty tight, it's pretty punishing if you screw up. Yeah, I don't know. It's, it takes some getting used to, for sure. At least for me. I'm still in the old muscle memory of old Dragoon. And, I don't know. I do like it. It is really fun. I have to play it more at the end of the day. I'm still, you know, I feel like I'm playing really well in the extremes. Obviously, I can still play better, but, yeah, I've only just gotten geared on Dragoon. I am finally in the current best in slot stuff from, you know, tome gear, the extreme stuff. We still use the AF pants, the artifact gear for the pants, just because they don't have skill speed. We're still using this dungeon ring because the tome ring has skill speed and we don't really want any skill speed, but all the other gear on Dragoon is looking good. All of the EX2 accessories, the EX1 weapon, so I don't know. We're at a 2.5 GCD as well, so if you're still leveling, or if you have like a bunch of dungeon gear, or the job gear, the level 99 job gear, the rotation might feel a little awkward until you get to that 2.5 GCD, but yeah, I don't know. Dragoon's been fun. I've been really liking it. Hopefully this video helped you out if you're on the fence about leveling Dragoon or playing it. Currently, as it stands, it's not doing phenomenal damage compared to the other melee, but it's not doing horribly either. It's kind of middle of the road. So it's in a good spot. That's kind of where Dragoon's always been compared to the other melee jobs. And yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep playing it. This will probably stay my main job in 14, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm going to get back to farming the extremes some more. We got normal raids coming up in a week, so we'll have a few more fights to try it out in, and I'll be streaming some of that over on Twitch. My link to that will be in the description if you want to come hang out and check it out, ask any questions you got. Feel free to hop in the Discord as well. Happy to answer any questions in there whenever. But yeah, I'm liking this job. There's a few minor things that I have my gripes about, but none of them are big enough to really cause an issue, in my opinion. I'm very happy with where it's at, and yeah, we'll see if it gets any updates in the coming patches throughout Dawntrail. But until then, I'm going to have fun playing it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Like the video, really helps out. And I'll catch you in the next one. We got more of these videos coming for some other jobs as well. I've got a few things leveled already. I've been playing a bunch of Dark Knight as well. I've got Bard, Ninja, and Sage leveled as well. So I just got to play them all. I got to gear them and get into the extreme with them when I'm not in a bunch of dungeon gear. So look forward to all that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you liked this. And yeah, that'll do it for me today. So catch you next time. Have a good one. Peace.